Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's time for AMA number 19. I am YamatoCannon, but I assume you already know that, because this is AMA number 19. AMAs are now legal in most states and most countries. If you have any questions for future AMAs, ask them on the YamatoCannon subreddit or the Discord or also the Patreon. No spicy sauce just yet. You know, I'm collecting them. One has arrived, I'm collecting them, and I haven't forgotten. Huh? Don't worry. Just chill. Let's jump into today's questions. Heshi asks, what is your opinion about using scrims to get information about your scrim partner draft without playing the same picks after? Do you think scrims should have standard rules like can't dodge, can't pick teamer, can't remake after ace invade level 1? Limited amount of timeouts. What is your insight as a former coach? Is it even worth to use this kind of tactics? Well, in my experience, this happens, all the time. I think there is, I don't think it's completely black and white. I think there are scenarios where the game is literally over and, ace invade level 1, like if the matchups are so skewed, in some cases, there's no point in continuing that game. I think in most cases, what I've done is I've come to agreements with coaches that kind of lasts throughout the season. For example, I'm scrimming against X team, they dodge, and we agree that we don't do it any further, and then that's it, That's at least the case in the LEC, and my experience in the LEC. In some cases, drafts are so completely lost because of some mistakes that you made, and you need to step out and you need to remake. There's also the other side of that coin. Like if you do it for information, it's completely, you're a rat. You're a goddamn snake if you do it. It's really bad, unsportsmanlike behavior. But I wouldn't say it's completely black and white. And I think in some cases it's obvious. There was a specific player. I know every pro player knows who I'm talking about. So. Shout out to you guys that happen to watch these videos. There was this guy who you went into draft and then you pick a champ and then they pick a champion to counter your champ or whatever, and then you pick another champ and then they remake and then they say no, you can't pick that champ, and then they ban it, and then you go into draft again and then we pick a different champ first and then they leave champion select again because they're like, what the fuck? Why did you change your champ? And this honestly blew my mind. Think very, very hard and you can figure out who it is. It's it's just think very hard and you'll know who it is. Fruit Junkie 007 asks, what do you think of the future TSM roster with Doublelift as the ADC? What is your opinion on that move? Well, if it happens, so everything that I'm saying here is if it happens. So the first question that comes into everyone's mind is the competitive integrity part of it. I think if TSM and Team Liquid are both happy with the move, I think there is no reason to bring up the question of poaching. Because if Team Liquid walk away with this and they are satisfied, the impression that I'm getting from Team Liquid is that this is something that they wanted to do, right? And Team Liquid as an organization want to make sure that any past players or current players are very, very happy with their next position. This is something that, Steve has a very, very good history of. So as long as there is no animosity between Team Liquid and TSM, I think there is no, cause for speculation in terms of how it went down. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what if Doublelift was inting? I sincerely doubt it. Like, you can't prove one or the other, right? You just can't, so there's no reason to even speculate on the topic. And then the question of, Doublelift would then be the AD carry for, I'm not sure about the position that Lena has in the organization, but this is something that TSM as an organization take upon themselves, right? They put themselves in that position. Sometimes in work environments, there are such things that protect employees from such situations. but this is something that is once again done for the benefit of the internal portion of the organization. And if TSM are willingly signing Doublelift, knowing, you know, the situation between Lina and Doublelift, this is the responsibility that they're taking. They are the ones that can, you know, suffer from this. It doesn't matter what's going on the outside. It might be tricky for some of the players. I don't know if some of the past players are comfortable with it or whatever. You know, it is something that TSM has to handle. So I think as long as that's the case, I don't think it really matters for any other team, because this could either be like the only thing that this could come out as potentially, I'm not saying it is as a disadvantage. So to me, I don't think you should block the trade. I think it is what it is. In the end, you know, the topic that people raised was that if there's conflict between, like with the fact that, you know, there was a TSM member and a Team Liquid member spending time together, but this is unavoidable. I think it is very, very common that, you know, you have partners being together and they are working in competitive fields where they are, you know, pitted against each other. This is very, very common, and I don't think this should ever be blocked either. Finally, is Kobe was put in a very, very awkward position, right? All things considered, Kobe was pretty much screwed over. I think this is the nature of any business. You know, if your contract allows it, if your contract allows you to be put in a position where you are pretty much released or dismissed at in the middle of the split or in the middle of a contract, you need to be ready for that right to be exercised, because organizations are going to act in what they believe is their best interest, regardless of how much, you know, they tell you they care about their people and so forth. They're going to act in what they believe is their best interest, and you know, employees, players, coaches are always going to be a collateral to that if there's a possibility within it. So the only thing you can do is protect yourself within the contract and, you know, take it for what it is. It happened to me, right? I was ready to coach Vitality for another year. They wanted to start off fresh. Understandable, you know. They take the decision to start off fresh. They want to start on a new page, move away from the whole Yamato, Jizuke, Kabo, Attila, Jack Troll era, right? They wanted to step away from it, and that's fine. You know, I'm not going to hold it against them. This is their decision. I have a lot of good memories with them, and this is what it is in the end, right? And that's a part of the business. That's a part of any business. You just have to take it on the chin. If there is a possibility for you to be released, you need to be ready for the worst. And then the final point on Doublelift, in terms of bringing him on as a strategic piece within your team, the key thing is that he is an NA resident, and he is one of the best. He has motivation issues, but now you're moving him from his past team. Now he has a lot to prove. He has a lot of things to be motivated for. New team, new dynamic. This is something that always brings fire to players, and I think Doublelift historically, when he plays against his past teams, he, you know, comes forth with great vengeance and furious anger, except the time he left COG, I guess. And I think now there are teams where he definitely wants to target, you know, he wants to target C9, he wants to target Team Liquid, you know, it's personal. And I think the motivation will be back, but I think this is also a good strategic move for the future to lock down a player like Doublelift, because in the end, you know, regardless of what people want to think about his spring split performance, this is the player with the most amount of trophies in North America, and at the same time he's an NA resident, which lines up TSM for the next year when they are going to look for a new jungler or something like that, right? That's very key, or new support or whatever they're gonna do, right? So we just have to pay attention to that and see if it changes. I think also Doublelift comes across as a more assertive person, and I think in the TSM environment, I think that's very important to make yourself thrive. One Trick Pony. Hello Yamato, keep up your good work and content. I'm from small country and finally managed to get some more LEC, more players into the LEC, to be specific, Czech Republic. What do you think about players such as Humanoid, Kazi, Denik, Patrick? Do you think any of them have much higher potential than they show us, or in general potential to get into squads like Fnatic or G2? I think looking at the players that you mentioned, I think Denik had a great first split. I need to see him with a different AD carry because I think B-Boy is not that strong. I think Karzi is the one that on paper has the most potential to me here. I think he had a fantastic first split, and I think he was a driving force behind why Mad Lions beat G2, because I think Mad Lions still, I don't think Humanoid or Rome and Humanoid or Rome, I don't think they played out of their mind in any shape or form, and I think Karzi and Kaiser are definitely the best players on Mad Lions, and I think they have a strong future ahead of them, and these are the type of players that you could potentially see in the G2 of Fnatic. Elkun Johnny asks, hey Yamato, how do players or even coaches handle the pressure they get every day? Do you have any specific tips or ways to deal with pressuring moments? Well, I think it depends on the personality. There are some people that thrive under pressure. A great example would be Perks. The better and the tougher the opponent, the more the pressure is, the better Perks seems to deliver. For example, against Fnatic, or for example against RNG at the World Championship. I think Perks is a clear example of someone that deals with pressure super well. I think the key thing is, pressure in the end is thoughts, right? Thoughts that plague you, stress that comes into your mind. The same way you would deal with other emotions, the same way you need to deal with pressure. For some, the same way you would describe someone, when this guy gets angry, he plays better. Or when this guy is sad, he plays better. When he's happy, he plays better. The emotional states of mind is something that you need to personally explore. But the key thing is, when it comes to exploring what state of mind you are the best in, this is where meditation and mindfulness is key. I've recommended meditation and mindfulness so many times, and really mapping out what kind of a person you are, because maybe pressure affects you. Then it's important to map it out and to recognize that it affects you. And then you need to map out the moments when it affects you. And then when it begins to happen, you can catch yourself in the motion. Because in the end, pressure, whatever shape or form it comes in, whether it's stress or distractions, these are things that you can separate your mind from and obtain focus. And for some, that pressure is better, and in those cases you need to let yourself go right, and you need to look for that pressure within every situation. And this is something, in a lot of cases people say that, there's no room for emotions in business, and in competition. I think emotions can be weaponized. Emotions are inconsistent, but if you find consistency in the emotions that make you better, that is the point in time where you can be the strongest as a player. And usually the ones that are the most successful are the ones that naturally are drawn towards pressure and do better in those moments. Because in the end, going back to the example of Perks, you can find pressure within every scenario if you look deep enough. And Perks came onto the scene with an absolute explosion. Spring 2016 was his first debut. He won that split, and I think he has only lost 2 splits ever since, which was to Fnatic and Caps. So I think Perks is just the ideal example of a personality aligning perfectly to compete and become, the champion within the region. So you need to figure out, how does your personality align? Where does your mindset lie, where you are the strongest? Blue XX2, hello Yamato. Ellis recently said in his stream with Doublelift that early Drake is only good if it's Infernal or Mountain. Thoughts? I think it's more of the sense that I don't think it's necessarily... I doubt that he meant that they are strong early, because they just aren't, and I wouldn't imagine that Ellis would make such a mistake. I think it's more about, it's worth it because these Drakes are very valuable in comparison to the other 2 Drakes. They're going to get value as the game progresses, and that value is inevitable. I don't think it's about, oh, you take it early and it's strong early and it's going to impact early. It's a trade-off because Infernal Mountain are going to get better as the game progresses. If you compare it to Ocean and Cloud, it's not that great. Just Infernal Mountain are actually statistics, you know. I don't think any dragon is strong early per se. I don't think it's going to impact the game at all early. So I think it's just about the scaling within these dragons. Just another web user. Yo Yamato, in the spring playoffs there's been a lot of talk about draft differences. How important is draft in your opinion compared to the raw skill of the players? Do you think that the current pick and ban system is good enough, or should it be eventually changed? I don't know if it should be changed. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole just yet. I think it's a very, very broad topic that I shouldn't just jump into from the get-go. But in terms of draft differences, the key thing is, you know, there are clear draft differences in the sense that teams don't recognize the strengths of their own players. I think in some playoffs, especially with Fnatic and also Gen.G now, this is just clear examples of teams not recognizing their own strengths. No matter how good G2 or T1 drafted, Gen.G and Fnatic definitely shot themselves in the foot. So there is a sense of that. But also in the contrast of raw skill of players, skill of players is at an all-time high in terms of how important it is. You can't have a player that is a role player any longer. Those players are going to die off and be completely obsolete in the coming years, because you need to have players that are, well-rounded. You need to have players that cover every aspect of the game. You can't have a player that is only good at playing weak side. That just doesn't exist. You're going to never ever win a championship if you have a player like this. The second portion of draft, so I mentioned, Gen.G and Fnatic not recognizing the strengths and not drafting towards the strength. The second thing is individual players. Individual players can also hold back. When we talk about the skill of the players, they can also hold back the draft, because in the end, the limitations within the draft come from the players themselves. If I have a team where they can play every single champion in the game perfectly, then I can draft better. If they can play half the champs, then I can draft worse. If they can play 20% of the champs, then I can draft even worse, right? So the skill of players is also super important in terms of drafting, because that defines it too. We can go back to the Fnatic series. So we had the Tahm Kench, we had Nemesis playing Veigar Kassadin. That's not fantastic, right? Is that a draft question, or is it player question, player champion pool question? We had Tahm Kench being picked over and over. Is that, another question of champion pool issue? They had to ban Kalista, they had to ban Syndra, they banned Yuumi on blue, which is whatever. Is this champion pool issue, skilled issue, or draft issue? They just go hand in hand. Skill and draft comes together. Rarely do you run into a team that just plays every champion and are ready to pick it because they had an epiphany at 5 in the morning. And that's what makes G2 so good. The raw skill allows them to draft in a way that other teams in a lot of cases can't. So I think they go hand in hand. I can have like an insane big brain draft and my players never played any of these champs, and they're gonna shit the bed because they just don't know how to play it. Maybe they're not good enough to play it, and that happens sometimes. So I think both go hand in hand. I think raw skill of players is at an all-time high in terms of how important it is, and draft is just there to complement and to piece it together. Draft always comes second. And I think still Gen.G and Fnatic were examples of, I think they could have expressed more skill within their draft based off of the players that they have. But when I see Zilean last pick into Corki, then, Stronzi. Jacob216216. Hi Amaro, I play with the camera locked. What is the best way to learn to play with camera unlocked? And is there a difference between pros who play with locked camera more than others? Well, yeah, they see a lot less. Thing is, put yourself in a position where your camera is static is just worse, because in some cases you want to have a better overview of a fight in some specific direction. You want to check the position of your teammates. There is many reasons to look elsewhere than just onto your camera. It is as if, let's say you're driving, you're driving and the only thing you're doing is looking forward. It is silly. You have mirrors that are helping you, seeing angles. These are your F1 buttons and F2 buttons and so forth. There are many reasons as to why you need to do this. There is no argument for locked camera. The only argument for locked camera is, okay, if you're shopping, at least your camera is locked, so you see if someone's canceling you, attacking you. Yay, that's something that can be done even without camera locked, so there is no argument for it. It's the same with players that skill up spells with their mouse. There's no reason, there's no argument for it. It's just a weakness, you know? And it is important to break these bad habits, because in the end, you know, if you want to become the best, you want to get better, you need to train in a way where you strive for perfection. Playing with locked camera is not striving for perfection at all. And in order to get out of it, just stop playing with locked camera. That's it. Just stop playing and get used to not playing with locked camera. There's no secret. There's no secret website like Smiterino, Locked Camerino, where you go and you say, oh, let me practice how to get out. No, just stop. Just stop. That's it. Just stop. That's the way. Swistico City asks, any thoughts on how Excel is going to fill their solo lanes for summer? It's going to be super difficult. Always in between seasons is super hard. I guess they'll just have to farm EU Masters or import. I don't know how they will do it, but if they release, expect them making with such confidence, I expect them to have some backups. The second part of the question, do you think Mickey and Expect will find a spot in the LCEU? I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't think they showed anything that is, you know, worth keeping. They need to prove themselves again. Crispy Clean asks, what is inside the books that every coach is using on stage? Can you show what's inside? I can't show you, but I can tell you. Basically, you have draft scenarios. Usually what I put is champion pools of everyone, because having every draft scenario doesn't make a lot of sense at this point in time. Instead, I have a list of everyone's champion pool, enemy, mine, and then I make like I cross the list, and then I always review, and I have them separated in important columns that allow me to piece things together quicker. And then I have personal notes that no one could make sense of. No one on the planet could make sense of my notes, because these notes spring a memory in my mind, and that's how I use it, you know? So in a case where someone would find my notebook, it would make absolutely no sense to anyone. And I'm sure that the way other coaches structure the notebook is also for their personal reason. It's just, imagine it's like a tiny little floppy disk that you bring onto the stage that, you know, just an extra piece of memory that you can use up there. So, and that's it. Nuake, thoughts on beating Funnel? Just pray for nerfs. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AMA number 19. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. It's always interesting to read. It's also, you know, I love the fact that the questions are always in line with the current topics, and it shows to me that my community is very tight-knit and connected with what's going on with the world. So I'm very happy I don't need to plant fake questions in order to speak about the topics that I want to talk about. So thank you very much for that. I wish you all the best. Stay safe. AMA number 19. It's crazy that we got so far. Hopefully I can share some great news with you guys soon. Let's hope I can nothing happens to put these news in shambles, because that has happened once already, and I don't want to be in that position again. So much love to all of you, all the best, and yeah, sorry for wearing sunglasses. I don't know, I wore them today, I kind of miss them. Louis V. Bye.